Let me turn to Iran. We're 3 weeks out from their election.
Yeah.
Do you have any doubt it was stolen?
Well, look, what I don't want to do is play into the hands of the Supreme Leader and Ahmadinejad like they're blaming the British now, you know, that the reason why there was unrest is outside influence.
They're saying they have confessions from a former saying that.
Well, you know, they say a lot of things. That's simply not true. I think the dust hasn't settled yet.
Still? 3 weeks ago?
Well, no. Well, here's what I think. I mean, I think it's clear that the consequences of the way the election was conducted and the way that the election was declared, who was declared a winner and how, is going to have a rippling effect. What that effect will be, I don't know. I think we have to wait to see how this settles out and before we can make a judgment.
But there's no doubt now that they responded violently.
Well, there is no doubt about that. There is no. The whole world saw it, and it is. We have to acknowledge, as a free and sovereign nation, that we abhor the violence that took place. We think it was inappropriate the way in which they treated those protesters, and so there's no question. We and the rest of the world looked at them and said, my Lord, this is not the way.
But how do you respond to critics who say the United States should have come out forcefully right away and said this is wrong, stop it, and they say that would have made a difference?
Well, I don't. I think the president was absolutely pitch perfect. I think the president did it exactly the right way. I think the president did not allow us to be used as the scapegoat.
There were some reports that you were arguing for a more forceful response earlier.
Well, I think the president did it exactly right. I think he was correct.
And going forward, what next? What should the strategy be right now?
Well, look, the Iranian government has a choice. They either choose greater isolation and from the whole world, or they decide to take a rightful place in civilized, big, great nations. That's the path they have to choose.
Haven't they already shown evidence in the last few weeks of what their choice is?
Well, they have in terms of the way they conducted their election, but they haven't in terms of whether the real key issues to now, are they going to continue the nuclear program? Are they going to be braced by what happened? Is this going to alter their behavior internally or externally? Look, responses that they saw on the street in any country have consequences. It's hard to predict what those consequences will be.
But what are the consequences for the U.S. relationship? I mean, the president has said he wants to meet with the Iranians over the nuclear program through the P5. But how do you engage with the Iranians now without breaking faith with those reformers?
Well, the way you do it is if they choose to meet with the P5 under the conditions the P5 have laid out, it means they begin to change course. And it means that the protesters probably had some impact on the behavior of an administration that they don't like at all. And it believes, and I believe, that means there's consequences to that. Now, if they in fact decide to shut out the rest of the world, clamp down, further isolation, I think that takes them down a very different path.
How do you respond to those who say that it's the United States now that should hit the pause button? There should be a cause correction, and we shouldn't rush to sit down with the Iranians.
We're not rushing to sit down. As I said to you, we have to wait to see how this sort of settles out. And there's already an offer laid out there by the permanent 5+1 to say we're prepared to sit down and negotiate with you relative to your nuclear program. And so the ball's in their court.
When I saw President Ahmadinejad back in April, his response to that was that we need to see more from the United States first. Is it fair to say now that there will be absolutely no more concessions to the Iranians in advance of those discussions?
It's fair to say the position the president has laid out will not change.
But there will be engagement if the Iranians want to come sit down?
If the Iranians seek to engage, we will engage.
And meanwhile, the clock is ticking with
Let me be clear. If the Iranians respond to the offer of engagement, we will engage.
But the offer is on the table.
The offer is on the table.
And meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it pretty clear that he agreed with President Obama to give till the end of the year for this whole process of engagement to work. After that, he's prepared to take matters into his own hands. Is that the right approach?
Look, Israel can determine for itself as a sovereign nation what's in their interest and what they decide to do relative to Iran or anyone else.
Whether we agree or not.
Whether we agree or not. They're entitled to do that. Any sovereign nation is entitled to do that. But there is no pressure from any nation that's going to alter our behavior as to how to proceed. What we believe is in the national interest of the United States, which we coincidentally believe is also in the interest of Israel and the whole world. And so there are separate issues. If the Netanyahu government decides to take a course of action different than the one being pursued now, that is their sovereign right to do that. That is not our choice.
But just to be clear here, if the Israelis decide Iran is an existential threat, they have to take out the nuclear program militarily, the United States will not stand in the way?
Look, we cannot dictate to another sovereign nation what they can and cannot do when they make a determination, if they make a determination that they're existentially threatened, their survival is threatened by another country.
You say we can't dictate, but we can, if we choose to, deny overflight rights here in Iraq. There are ways we can stand in the way of a military strike.
I'm not going to speculate, George, on those issues, other than to say Israel has a right to determine what's in its interest, and we have a right and we will determine what's in our interest.